Dear friends, good evening, good evening. How are you all doing? Baruch Hashem. Beautiful. Okay, here we are. Lesson 4 of How Happiness Thinks. Very special class. Tonight's lesson, lesson 4 is titled, The Joy of Struggle, Exploiting Our Shortcomings as Sources of Happiness. So, dear friends, before we jump into today's specific topic, I want to digress a little bit and do a little brief exploration with all of you of an interesting topic that I want to get back to at the very end of today's class. So we'll start with this, we'll end with this before we jump in. Very interesting. Turn in your books to text 1 on page 128. This is from a pretty controversial book when it came out, made big waves. 3 different ways of how people in America look towards their jobs, their employment, what you do. Right here in America, it's part of the American shtick. What do we tell people? We ask people, when you meet somebody, hey, how are you? So what do you do? Interesting way to phrase it, no? What do you do? What do you mean, what do I do? You mean, what's my job? All right, in any case, 3 different perspectives to how people look at work. Text 1, and I want to unpack this a little bit with you. Text 1, page 128. Louis, want to give us a read? Start us off? All right.
There are several different notions of work and of how it bears on who we are. In the sense of a job, work is a way of making money and making a living. In the sense of a career, work traces one's progress through life by achievement and advancement in an occupation. In the strongest sense of a calling, work constitutes a practical ideal of activity and character that makes a person's work morally inseparable from his or her life. It subsumes the self into a community of disciplined practice and sound judgment, whose activity has meaning and value in itself, not just in the output or profit that results from it.
3 different ways how people look at their work. Job, career, calling. Okay, so let's tease this out a little bit more. What is the attitude of somebody who looks at their job, at their work as a job, or career, or calling? What does that look like? So here's 3 more texts that give us a little bit of a description, a more detailed description of what each one of these are. So Debbie, I want you to read all 3 of them. All right, so let's start one at a time. Text 2A.
Job. Mr. A works primarily to earn enough money to support his life outside of his job. Mr. A's job is basically a necessity of life, a lot like breathing or sleeping. He often wishes the time would pass more quickly at work. He greatly anticipates weekends and vacations. If Mr. A lived his life over again, he probably would not go into the same line of work. He would not encourage his friends or children to enter his line of work. Mr. A is very eager to retire.
Interesting, huh? So this is what we call a job, which means, look at this guy. Just look at that. See, that's a job. A way of making money and making a living, but besides that, there's no heart, there's no soul, not much going on over here. I'll tell you a story about this guy. You want to hear a story about this guy?
Yes.
His name is Bob Smith. Okay? That's his name. Bob Smith is at his job, and he looks like this. And he started picking up that he's 1 foot out the door. His boss is getting rid of him. So he started putting out some feelers for his next job. He sent his resume. And HR of one of his new companies that he's looking to get into decides to cold call the company where he's currently employed at to find out a little bit about him. Let's do an anonymous call. So they call the company, and he answers the phone. So they say, hey, I just want to keep this quiet. We want to ask you a little bit about one of your coworkers, Bob Smith. So he says, sure. So we're calling with this HR from this other company. Is he present? Does he show up on time? Does he leave early, or does he, is the type of guy like his lunch breaks are 4 or 5 hours long, or what's his? So Bob says, listen, this is what I'll tell you. Whenever I'm here, he's here. He got the job. Okay. So this is Bob Smith, dear friends. He has a job. He's just making money. He's making a living, but that's all that's in it for him. Nothing more. Let's move on. Career, text 2B.
Career. Mr. B basically enjoys his work, but does not expect to be in his current job 5 years from now. Instead, he plans to move on to a better, higher level job. He has several goals for his future pertaining to positions he would eventually like to hold. Sometimes his work seems a waste of time, but he knows that he must do sufficiently well in his current position in order to move on. Mr. B can't wait to get a promotion.
Okay. Career is a little bit more of an investment, and you're investing in your future. This is a career. This is building up my opportunities. And, this is where you're already fully embracing the world. You're advancing in your occupation. And so you can't say that you see the here and now as where you'd like to be, but you're invested. You see this as a journey moving forward. Okay, that's career. And calling.
Calling. Mr. C's work is one of the most important parts of his life. It is one of the first things he tells people about himself. Mr. C feels good about his work because he loves it and because he thinks it makes the world a better place. He would encourage his friends and children to enter his line of work. Mr. C would be pretty upset if he were forced to stop working, and he is not particularly looking forward to retirement.
Beautiful. This is somebody who sees tremendous value. He loves what he does. He throws himself into it. And I love what it said in text 1, that it makes a person's work morally inseparable from his or her life. Who am I? This is who I am. That is calling. My work makes the world a better place. Okay. Now, any person in America, you could ask them, the way their relationship with their job fits into one of these 3 criteria. So this book, which was published in 1985, created this model, this 3-point model, and ever since then a lot of studies were done based on this model. I want to read with you 2 findings from studies, from research done into many different people based on how do they view their job. This is the first one. Let's read text 2D, Stewart, page 130. Here we go.
We suggested that callings would generally be associated with greater life, health, and job satisfaction, and with better health. Results were consistently in this direction, with job respondents scoring lowest and calling respondents scoring highest on all 4 of these measures.
All right, that makes sense, right? So, who is going to be happier? Who's just having a better life? Our jobs, the work that we do, is really what takes up our whole day. You wake up in the morning, you're full of energy, and then where'd all that energy go? You work. You come home, you're already tired, you're beaten up. Day's done. So it's literally, we give up our life for our work. So, but what do you think about your work? The study is, this is beautiful, greater life, health, job satisfaction. It says better health twice. I'm not sure what that means. Health and then even better health. Double dose of health? How do you measure double dose of health? We need like Rashi here to help us understand why health and then double health. Better health. Okay, in any case. But that is the idea. If you look at your life as a calling, you're in good shape. But then there's a second finding, which is very interesting, and it was, I guess, one of my biases, but I was surprised to find this. Let me ask you. When you hear of this, some people look at their job as a job. Some people look at it as a career. Some people look at it as a calling. Which type of people would you think are more prone to look at their job as just a job, and which people would be more prone to look at it as a calling? What would you say?
Highly trained people would be more calling.
Yeah. Highly trained people. Why?
Because they had a focus that brought them in that direction in the first place. It interested them, it resonated with them to even go in that direction.
Oh.
So it's a fulfillment of a plan.
Well, it's not necessarily. Some people just go into it because they want to make good money. They want to set themselves up for success.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that, why in medical school? I don't know what they said. It's just a good Jewish thing to get into. Do you care for medicine? No. I mean, it's some and some. But I guess, so, okay, before I, what else? Any other thoughts? What jobs do you think would be more supportive for one versus the other?
A boring job could be like you can just go, it's repetitive, you do the same every day.
Say that again?
It's like a boring or repetitive, like you do the same thing.
You're saying boring jobs could be more,
Versus you probably meet a lot of people.
right. So if your job is to stack shelves in a supermarket, is that more like a job or a career job or a calling job? Job, you say? And if you're so I thought that it basically was dependent on what type of job you have. Comes the studies and proves the rabbi wrong. Okay, let's read text 3. Stuart, you read this one also. Text 3, page 131.
Traditionally, callings were reserved to very prestigious and rarefied work. Priests, Supreme Court justices, physicians, and scientists. But there can be an important discovery in this field. Any job can become a calling, and any calling can become a job. A physician who views the work as a job and is simply interested in making a good income does not have a calling, while a garbage collector who sees the work as making the world a cleaner, healthier place could have a calling. Amy Rosneski, a professor of business at NYU, and her colleagues are the scientists who made this important discovery. They studied 28 hospital cleaners, each having the same official job description. The cleaners who see their job as a calling craft their work to make it meaningful. They see themselves as critical in healing patients. They time their work to be maximally efficient. They anticipate the needs of the doctors and the nurses in order to allow them to spend more of their time healing, and they add tasks to their assignments. Whereas the cleaners in this job group see their work as simply cleaning up rooms.
Very interesting. It makes no difference what job you have. It's all about your attitude. Some people are at the highest level of making the most money, high-level jobs. Should be meaningful jobs. They look at it as a drag. Some people, right? You can have a doctor in the hospital, a surgeon in the hospital, and he's in it for the job. It's a drag for him. He's already burnt out. And you can have that same hospital, in that room, the hospital cleaner. And what does he see? He sees, I'm making this place a beautiful place. I'm taking care of people. And he looks at it as a calling. So it's interesting. It has nothing to do with what your job actually is. It's all about attitude. Yes?
There's a famous story that during the time that they were preparing the moon landing, that some TV channel was interviewing different people at NASA. And they saw that there was a custodian who was cleaning the floor. And they went up to him and they said, tell me, sir, what do you do here? And he said, I help send a man up to the moon.
Wow. I love that. Yeah, see, it's all perspective. It's all perspective, and the studies support that. So, dear friends, this is what I want to do with you right now. Let's bring it home. I want all of you to take a minute. I'm not going to ask you what the results are. These are highly personal. You can either write them down in your book, or you can just mentally make note of this. But on page 132, I want us to take a serious look at our lives and at 6 specific areas of our personal lives and think, how do we think about this? Let's apply this model not to our job, but to our personal life. Employment, we'll start with employment. Caring for and spending time with my family. Volunteer work and charity, struggling with my character flaws and personal shortcomings. Community involvement, religious observances. Are these job, career, calling? What is job? Job is something you do only because it gets you something else that you need or that you want. Career is something you do for the sake of self-improvement and self-advancement. Calling you do because it serves a higher purpose and makes the world a better place. Give yourself a serious reflection, a serious answer, an honest answer, and then we'll get the show on the road. Okay? And again, this is personal. I'm not going to ask you for your results. Doing okay? We got the answers? All right. Now this whole conversation of job, career, calling, let's shelve it for now. We'll get back to it in about an hour or so. All right? Let us talk about today's topic. Let us get into what we're going to be talking about today. We are 4 lessons into how happiness thinks, which means that we are in the second half of our journey, and we're learning the Jewish art of how happiness thinks. And it's all about perspective. It's not at all about what is happening. It's all about how we process what is happening. And that is the life that we are supposed to live as Jews, the way Judaism teaches us. And tonight we have a very, very interesting topic. You usually ask people, what are the types of things that get you down? What are the areas of stress that you have in life? What is anxiety inducing? What is it usually? It is usually going to be material problems. I have a health problem in my family. There's a lack of peace in the home. I'm in financial difficulty. Lost my job. Something went wrong. These are the types of things. Right? Family, health, and parnasa, livelihood. Those are the big 3 things. We spoke about those. Not all, but generally speaking, we did speak about the anxieties of life. That was a very big part of lesson 2. What was the answer to that? If we adopt a little bit more of a spiritual mindset, a more spiritually inclined mindset, look at things from a little bit more of a spiritual perspective, that gives you the perspective for happiness. Which, interestingly, could lead us into a new problem, into a new minefield, which are spiritual problems. Today's topic is a uniquely spiritual problem, which is a sense of despondency, a sense of inner sadness, a sense of inner frustration, shame, a sense of failure over your spiritual and moral state of being. And this is, interestingly, specifically a problem that comes as you grow spiritually. The more spiritually minded you become, the more spiritually sensitive you become, and the more spiritual and moral failings bother you. So it's interesting. It's like a double-edged sword. Growing spiritually could actually induce new pain, new distress. Interesting phenomena. And this is a problem that, especially as people get more, as I said, more in tune with spirituality, start trying to grow more spiritually, this is a problem that a lot of religious people face. An inner frustration over who I am, an inner shame of who I am. And I want to talk that I want to talk a little bit about that. Which means the more that you hold yourself to a higher standard, the more disappointed you could get in yourself, to a point that you could really start feeling like a little bit of a failure, a personal failure. Very interesting type of thing. So, so let's get some ideas on the table. What do you think? What are some examples? Not you, because all of us here are great people, but other people, not here. What would be some of challenges that people face in this regard, where internally, they maybe don't share this with anybody, just between them and the lamppost. I don't know where that saying comes from, right? This is the things that get you down, cause you inner depression over yourself, makes you feel a little bit like a failure, a little bit less than. What are some spiritual and moral failures that some people struggle with? Let's get some ideas like that. We could actually have some tangible ideas on the table as we go through today's class. What would you say?
Well, maybe not if a person, for example, has a friend or friends plural who are maybe in a nursing home or are chronically ill, and that person doesn't have consistent contact with them, and doesn't support them consistently. This might be.
Oh, so let's say you know that you should be doing something. For example, checking in with somebody, even if it's annoying, even if it's difficult. And what happens? You're too selfish. You're too lazy. You're too impatient. And what do you start telling yourself? You start beating yourself up internally. I'm such a little kid. I'm such an animal. I'm such a this. I'm such a that. I can't even get myself to do the right thing. And even if I do the right thing, but the fact that I'm not even there, I have all these negative character traits. That's a good example. What else? Yes?
Someone does something to you that makes you mad at them, and then you get mad at yourself for being mad.
Oh, that's a good example, right? There's getting mad at somebody else, and there's getting mad at yourself that you're acting that you have a bad reaction, right? Your weaknesses, right? Your struggles. What else? So we're still in the area of character flaws. What would be some other examples of spiritual struggles that can really get at people and pull them down?
When somebody slanders you and takes some false stories out of you.
Okay, so somebody slanders you, so you feel bad. You feel shame that they slandered you.
Yeah, you don't know how to react or how to get out of that situation.
I hear. But that's something that's happening to you. That's not something that's coming from internally.
You do, it's happening, yeah, but I mean the reaction to it, how do you get this wrong thing out of the world?
Mm-hmm. Or maybe that could highlight to you your problems. You start realizing
Yeah.
that maybe
Right.
I'm not God's greatest gift to mankind,
Right.
contrary to my mother's beliefs. Yes.
When you're being asked to do something at work that goes against your own moral sense.
That's good. So if you're saying if you do it, a lack of inner strength to hold yourself to your own standards. Very good one. Very good. Yeah. There's a lot of times that we catch ourselves either doing something or wanting to do something that we know is so wrong. We know it's inappropriate. We know we shouldn't even want this. So why do I want it? Why do I have this desire for it? Even if you don't act upon it. Meaning, if you act upon it, that's a separate discussion. Then you feel guilt that I did something wrong. This is a little bit more finer than that. This is the idea that I even wanted it. How could I be something like that? How could it be that I'm not past that? How could it be that I'm this many years on earth and I'm trying to grow and I'm still in the mud? All right, any more examples before we go on? What do you say? Yes. Yeah, you wanted to say something? Sure.
That's living in fear, knowing that that's not the way to live.
Living in fear, knowing that that's not the way to live. Interesting. Fear of what? Like, what do you mean?
Fear of anything.
Mm-hmm. Is that a spiritual or moral failure, or that's just something which you have to grow through?
Well, because living with fear is not the best way to live.
Right, but I don't know if that's a spiritual or moral failure. That could just be,
Being mad at yourself for being afraid.
right. Oh, so if you're mad at yourself for... Let's get some examples on here. Let's get there's 4 general categories of what could be a spiritual or moral failure which causes spiritual stress. Number 1 is called a character flaw. What's a character flaw? Especially happens when you meet somebody else. They're selfless, they're charitable, they're kind, they're patient. And all of a sudden you realize that, what about me? I don't possess such great characteristics, such good traits. And you can start realizing, I could do better. Why am I not like him? Why am I not a better person? And it could eat up at you. I'm a bad person. I'm not such a good person. Yes?
Many of us think like that. I think when we hear about the righteous Gentiles in the Holocaust, and we wonder,
Ooh.
gee, if I were there, would I have been
Right.
brave enough to do that?
I would even have had that amount of selflessness and just sheer kindness and goodness of the heart. Yeah. Right. Right. The brave, to be brave.
Bravery.
Simply bravery, right? To stand up and do the right thing. Sometimes that happens. So that'll be another example. But I'll get to many of these things are somewhat intertwined with each other. The second example is negative thoughts, which means what? We don't actually act upon it. But in my mind, I think sometimes that I want to do something which is wrong, inappropriate, hurtful to somebody else. I wish I could do it. I know I'm never going to do it, but it's an inappropriate thought. It's an unhealthy thought. And we could be plagued by these types of thoughts. And what does that leave us with? It leaves us with a sense of a feeling low and lowly and unrefined and dirty. For example, right, if you give the example of anger before, you have anger in your heart, and you really wish you could do something. You feel vengefulness in your heart. So then you get mad at yourself. Why am I reacting that way? It's wrong. So that could be another character flaw. Number 3 is failure to meet self-improvement goals. We all want to be better, New Year's resolutions. We go to sleep the next morning, where are we? Back at square one. And there's this idea that we set ourselves up for failure, that we want to try to grow, and we maybe even put some steps into growth. And then what ends up happening? We find ourselves uphill battle. We're right back at square one. We feel like we're not actually moving anywhere. It's like, what type of things? And it can be any type of commitment. Going on a diet, we're losing weight. Or what? I'm going to be a better parent. I'm going to be a better spouse. I'll be more patient. I'll be more caring. I'm going to stop wasting as much time. I'm going to be more productive. I'm going to try to be a better Jew. But it doesn't pan out. And that leaves us with a sense of futility. Nothing is happening, of inertia. Okay, and the fourth example is missed opportunities. We look back, and this maybe touched upon what you said, I should have been braver. I should have made the right decisions. I shouldn't have just turned a blind eye. And again, this is one of the things, maybe a sense of laziness. And these are the types of things that can get you down and can cause an inner sense of less than, and it could eat up at your inner sense of just happiness over who you are, a sense of contentness within life. And instead you feel like a moral failure, a spiritual failure. Okay. Now, I want to be very, very clear. We are not at all talking in this discussion about that you've actually done something wrong. If you've done something wrong, okay, then you've actually caused damage. Okay, if you've done something wrong, that's a separate class for itself. This is a little bit more of a nuanced, specific area. We're focusing on a stress, not that you did something wrong, not that you hurt somebody, but about who you are. I'm upset at myself over who I am. I wish I was somebody better. I aspire to be somebody better, and I'm not there. And for some reason, a few years down the road, I'm still not there. So what am I? Am I a failure? Am I just incapable, incompetent? This is the idea. Torah, and Hasidic teachings especially, discusses this problem. Part of the growth of spiritual development are the bad days. And there's a sense of when you say, I want to just give up. I'm not making progress. And it's very important that we have a healthy attitude to our spiritual and moral lives as well. And this is going to be today's class. Now, again, I want to define a little bit precisely what we're going to be talking about today and what we're not going to be talking today. We are not talking today about how to solve any of these problems. Each of these specific issues and how to remedy these issues could be a whole course for itself, a short class. We've done it before. How do you deal with laziness? How do you deal with negative thoughts? How do you get over it? How do you get over anger? Any one of these specific issues and all different variations within them. There's ways to remedy them. There's many books. Go to the library, self-help section, right? How do I deal with these issues? I can only say this story. A guy walks into a library, walks over to the librarian and says, "Can you please show me where the self-help section is?" So she says, "But that would defeat the purpose." Okay. So there's a lot of self-help books and stuff about how to actually work through any of these specific issues, but what we want to address is a more general issue. While you're struggling and growing, how do we have a proper attitude? How do we make sure that the process itself, especially when it's long and grueling and there's sometimes regressions, how do we make sure that we are in the right frame of mind, that we're still happy, and we have a proper attitude, like a happiness think model of how to approach life, even when we're talking about the bad and the ugly, right? The skeletons in the closet that we have to work through. How do we make sure that we're doing it with the right perspective, not from a place of negativity and a sense of failure? That's what we're going to talk about today. And again, this especially because we all know this, there's no easy way out of growth. Spiritual growth, personal development is a lifelong journey. It takes many, many years. And there's successes, there's also failures. And it's really in the long road, in the long haul, where people start feeling very, very despondent. I'm not getting anywhere. I'm still not a good person. One day you think you're a good person, the next day it all comes crashing down. Oh, maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was. So am I just a bad person? So it's in the long road, after years and years, where a sense of despondency could really start kicking in. And that is what we want to talk about. What is the proper attitude as we go through life, as we struggle through life? That is today's topic, dear friends. Let us dig in. How does that sound? Sounds good? So we understand what we want to tackle today, we understand what we're not tackling today, and we understand what the problem is that we're dealing with. In order to understand how to navigate our lives, how to understand our lives, we're going to turn in today's class to a book that, especially here in Chabad of Bloomfield Hills, we put a lot of attention on. We love it, we study it, the book of the Tanya. We have a weekly class on Tanya, right? Who here joins a weekly class? Elke, I know you're committed. Okay, all right. So we don't have too many people here who are already so familiar with all what we're talking about. And you just did a whole course last year on Tanya, right? That was good, right? Okay, very good. Tanya is a book that is about 250 years old. It was written by Rabbi Shneir Zalman of Liadi in the late 1700s. He was the founder of the Chabad movement, the very first Rebbe of the Chabad Hasidic movement. The Tanya is, in a certain way, the very first spiritual, mystical self-help book to teach a Jew down to earth who they are, about their struggles, how to grow, what's the purpose of life, what's the meaning to life, how to be a good person. It's an unbelievable book. And we're going to look at the Tanya to help us understand about who we are, what it means to struggle, why we struggle, what our aspirations should be. And let us begin. Let us first learn a little bit about who we are, what gets us ticking, what gets us moving. Here's a story. Ready for a story? There's a guy, and he bought a parrot. But with time, this parrot started developing bad habits. He developed a very dirty mouth. You ever had such a parrot? And it was getting horrible. He couldn't invite anybody to the house. He was saying totally vulgar, inappropriate things. What was that? It wasn't his fault. He once had a guest, and it was just getting out of hand. It was getting out of hand. So he goes to the veterinarian. He says, I've got a real problem. You ever heard of this problem? This parrot, he's out of whack, out of control. So the vet says, listen, you could put him into rehab and this and that, but I have an easy trick. Easy trick. You have a freezer at home? Yeah, sure, I've got a freezer. Take your parrot, put him in the freezer for 30 seconds, not more. After more, it could be dangerous. 30 seconds. That's it. He said, what? Put in the freezer for 30 seconds? How would that help? Go home, trust me, put in the freezer for 30 seconds. If it doesn't work, come back to me. Doesn't know what to do. Okay, he goes home, takes his parrot. He says, coming along with me. Opens the freezer door, puts him in, closes the door. 30 seconds later, opens the door. The parrot comes out, stands up. He says, I want to share with you that I've decided to turn a new page in my life. It was totally inappropriate the way I've been acting up until now. I've come to regret what I've done, the way I've acted. And I'm making a commitment that this is never happening again. He can't believe it. 30 seconds in the freezer, he says, I'm so touched. Of course, I forgive you. And yes, I'm willing to forget. And we're moving past all this. And cheers to many more good times together. He puts the parrot back in his cage. And he's like, all right, I guess it worked. 30 seconds in the freezer. He's about to walk off. The parrot says, can I just ask a little question? Sure. He says, what did the turkey do wrong? So, what's the moral of the story? What's the moral of the story? Always have a turkey in your freezer. That's the moral. It's like that. You can always deal with it just in case. Okay. What gets us ticking? Right? It's a question of motivation. What gets us moving? What makes us tick as human beings? What motivates us? So, dear friends, let's go under the hood about who we are, what our identity is, what our spiritual DNA is, what our spiritual psyche is. Text 4a on page 133. Well, you know what? No, that's okay. Yeah, text 4a on page 133. Are we up to you, Carrie?
Yes,
So
we're-
let's do a read. This is from Tanya, chapter 1. Here we go.
Every Jew, whether righteous or wicked, has two souls. One soul is from Klippa, and the other side, the negative force in creation. This is the soul that vests itself in the person's blood to vitalize the body, and is the source of all bad character traits. The second soul of the Jew is veritably a part of God above.
Okay, there we go. The Tanya teaches us an idea that comes from Jewish mysticism, the Kabbalah, that the inner psyche of a Jew is not one soul, there are two souls, which is a very big idea. We need to unpack it with you, right? So this is, this is the focus. How do we deal with the seemingly endless struggle of self-refinement? And the answer is, we're going to start on a journey. We've got two souls. So what does it mean that we have two souls? Let's unpack this a little bit. What's a soul, first of all? What does it mean to have a soul? The definition of a soul is everything besides your dead body. What is essentially missing? You have a body which is alive, then you have a body which is not alive, a dead body. But it's a full body. What's the difference? It's not something you can measure. It's not something which is really even a force of our physical world. That's called a soul. A soul is life. A soul is a personality. A soul is a drive. What do you want? What's your motivations? What's pushing you in life? What is life? You know, it's interesting. It's even in the English language. It's interesting how we speak about our body. We speak about our body in the possessive language. It's my body, my hand, my nose. It's interesting. So you're not your body. It's my body. I own my body. But that means there's a me that possesses the body. So essentially, even in the English language, we imply that every single time we talk about our body. We say there's a me and then there's a body. So who's the me? It's not the body. It's what we call a soul. A soul is your life. Comes Jewish mysticism, comes the Tanya, and says there's not one life within you. There are two lives. Two souls. Which sounds like a little bit like a recipe for disaster, no? There are two lives inside of you. So we'll get to that. Let us understand these two souls within the human psyche. One soul we call the animalistic soul, which we have to define what it means. In the text, it says the source of all bad character traits. We'll get to that in a moment. The second soul is what we call a godly soul, a part of God above. The animal soul is simply your natural force of life. It is very normal. It's a part of the fabric of nature. It's the force for survival, self-gratification, pleasure, procreation. Just literally the force of life. It is the ego. It is the force that says, I am alive. I am the most important thing to me. I'm looking out for myself. Which is really just like all forms of biological life. It's at the essence of all forms of biology, of all life on our planet. Every single living thing is looking to survive, to thrive, and to procreate. And it's amazing how even different species, different plants, each have different survival mechanisms of how to procreate its species. It's very interesting. That's the animal soul. So if we're alive, we're hungry, go look for food. We feel threatened, go away. Something gives us pleasure, we're attracted. This is the animal soul, which has good days, it also has bad days, right? Bad character traits as well. It's not evil. It's not inherently evil. But it's very selfish or very self-serving. It's very focused inward, on me. The world revolves around me and my needs and my desires and my wants. That's the animal soul. But this is not the totality of who we are. We also have a totally second force of life within us, which is a piece of God. Literally, we are all walking pieces of God's within us. And this is the source for a form of life which is selfless, which is elevated, which is not focused inward. It sees life from a higher perspective. It's holy, it's pure. And these are the two souls that we possess within us. What does it mean that we live with two souls? Practically speaking, what does life look like? So let's do a little exercise together. And again, we have to be very honest. Okay, I want you to be very, very honest when we do this exercise. Page 134. Give as honest as possible, right? Make a check, yes or no, for each of the statements in this. Do not worry if the answers are inconsistent or if it contradicts another answer. Just answer each one as a standalone thing, yes or no. How are we doing? You answer them as honestly as possible? Here's my questions for you. Did you find it difficult to give a definitive answer to any of these questions? Sure. Yeah. Did you find yourself contradicting, answering yes to two things that don't seem to be compatible at all? Right? We are very interesting creatures. Most things in nature have a very focused agenda. They know exactly what they're doing, and they live that agenda. Like animals. Every animal is created as hardwired with a nature. And they just, they live their nature. And they're not always self-doubting themselves. There's not this inner conflict. We as humans, very, very interesting, that we can want total opposites at the exact same time. So I'll give you an example. One of my weaknesses is like sometimes to be lazy. You know what I'm talking about? Am I the only one? Not the only one, right? Just making sure, okay, this is a safe space. Now, my problem is I don't have the time to be lazy. I don't have the time to just take it easy. I'll do it anyway sometimes. So what does it look like? Okay, I'll spend time on social media, just that mindless going through social media. Reading a book that I'm really interested in reading, even though what am I doing? I've got work to do, but okay. Just can't help myself. I'm just lazy. I wanna just sit on the couch and read a book. I'm not interested in getting work done right now. The crazy thing is that on the one hand, I want to be lazy. On the other hand, what's also happening inside of me? I'm beating myself up at the exact same moment. You don't want to be lazy. You have work to do. You want to do that work. You're not going to be happy if you're lazy, but I also want to be lazy. So what do I really want to do? Do I want to do this or do I not want to do this? I don't even know myself. I do and I don't at the exact same time. So if you do it, then if you want to do it, then do it. If you don't want to do it, then don't do it. What does that mean that you don't want to do it, but you're still doing it and you're enjoying doing it, even though you know you're going to regret it later? But okay, I'm still doing it right now. And it's not because we sit there, we made a calculation, the benefits, the risks, the losses. Okay, we're doing it. No, it's just there's this inner conflict that lives within us. So why is it that we are such conflicted people? We want to do something even when we don't want to do it, but we still want to do it? This is the answer. There are two souls within us. There's not one you. If there's only one you, life would be very, very simple. but there are two yous. And this is the idea that there is a perpetual conflict that is going on inside of us. We have two souls, we have two lives that want to live, but there's only one body. And therefore, life is not simple. Let's read this next text. Text 4b, page 135. This is from chapter 9 of the Tanya that discusses the conflict. So,
Rabbi,
Pat, yes?
what is the difference between the two souls and the Yetzer Tov and the Yetzer Hara?
Very good question. Yetzer Tov and Yetzer Hara are each a little component of these two souls. This is the larger picture. A Yetzer means it's a little force, it's an influence. A soul means it's a full version of you. But the Yetzer Tov, Yetzer Hara is a specific detail within this larger, within each one. Yeah. Good question. Yes, Pat. Let's do the reading. You ready? Text 4b.
Like two kings who battle over one city, each desiring to conquer it and reign over it, that is, to rule its inhabitants according to his will, that they should obey him in all that he decrees for them, so too the two souls, the godly one and the animalistic one from Kalipa, battle each other over the body and all its limbs. The desire and will of the godly soul is that she alone should rule over the body and govern it, that all its limbs should obey her and abnegate themselves completely to her and serve as a vehicle for her. On the other hand, the animal soul that is from Kalipa wants the very opposite. It desires this, however, for a person's own good, that he should overpower her and defeat her.
Okay. What are we learning about over here? If we feel that there's two personalities within us that are locked in a fight, if we feel conflicted, and we don't know who's the real me, am I crazy? On the one hand, we have a force within us that's just looking for comfort, self-gratification, even at the expense of what's right, relationships, our moral and spiritual health. And then we have another force of what? That wants to strive for something higher. It's because there's a living battle within us. And this becomes the essence of the struggle of humanity. This becomes a struggle of life. We have two souls, we have two versions of you, and we are always being pulled in two different directions at once. The struggle of the two souls, two kings battling over one city, that's what it looks like. Two souls are battling over the body. Each one wants a body to live the life it wants to live. Yes?
Was Freud aware of Tanya?
He was. Not only that, the Tanya was written about 150 years before Freud.
Yeah.
There's actually been many academic papers to discuss the differences, similarities between the Tanya's model and Freud's model. Not only that, Sigmund Freud went and sought out the teachings of Chabad, and he met the fifth Chabad Rebbe, the great-great-grandchild of the Alter Rebbe, to discuss to discuss the Hasidic approach. It's very, very interesting. He was very, very interested in that, and he was trying to figure out the enigma of the Hasidic approach to the human psyche. So that's interesting that you mentioned it. Yeah. All right. So we have two souls, and they're in constant battle. So that gives us a model to understand what life could look like. How do we? So what life looks like is all based on how is our battle doing, right? Who's winning? Who's losing? How often? How little? So the Tanya continues and tells us that there's two types of people, two options of what the internal battle between the souls could look like within you, and we give it a title, two Hebrew titles. One is called a tzaddik. Tzaddik in Hebrew means a righteous person. And the definition of a tzaddik is somebody who's not just kind and nice and cute, but a tzaddik, somebody who's perfectly righteous, which means the battle is over. All the weaknesses, all the negativity of their animal soul has been dominated and has been transformed by their godly soul, and they are now walking beautiful people. No inner demons. No skeletons in their closets. Which means the tzaddiks have overcome the battle. They won not just the battle, they've won the war. And they never have to grapple anymore with inner negativity stemming from their animal soul. That's one option. The second title is called the Beinoni. The Beinoni literally in Hebrew means average or median. This is the normal condition of the human being. And the nature of the Beinoni personality is that they are living the struggle. The life that they're living is a perpetual struggle. So some people get to live their life and they work so hard, and at some point they hit this critical point where, the battle's over. The goodness within, the holiness within, the spirituality within has won, and that is now who they are. And then there's the Beinoni, which means they're working hard to make the right choices, they're growing, but at the end of the day, if you could open up, if you could do a little bit of a spiritual MRI test, you'll see that the battle still lives within. So what does that look like? They'll still have negative impulses, negative instincts, negative thoughts that pop into their head, inappropriate thoughts, inappropriate desires. Not that they act upon it. You don't have to act upon it, but they experience it. They're human. Here's my question for you. How many tzaddikim do you know just within your own life, within your own social circle? Nobody?
You know somebody's thoughts.
Right. You can't know somebody's thoughts, but once you know somebody good enough, you could usually tell if they good days, bad days, moments of weakness. No, not that they're bad, or are they literally people that just don't struggle? They're just such good people. They're literal forces of goodness. Even in their subconscious, you won't catch them. Anybody know? So you guys don't have a lot of confidence in the tzaddik reality, huh? Right? You want to tell me there's people out there that literally have no animal soul. They're just never selfish. They don't have that drive of just short-sightedness and selfishness and even greediness and jealousy, right? All the natural human things. Like the example we had over here. Feeling happy at somebody else's loss. Feeling happy at somebody else's failure, which stems from jealousy. If we want to be honest with ourselves, which human doesn't experience that? Even if they hate it while they feel it. I hate that I feel this way. I hate that I'm jealous of another person. It just makes no sense. Somebody else can't be successful, even if I'm not as successful. I can't accept that. It's such an animalistic thing. So we experience it even though we don't like it. But we experience it. So who can say that they've never had even a little bit of that sense? That's normal. That's human. So the tzaddik is past all that. There's no struggle anymore. He's one personality, only the goodness. Beinoni is average. Okay. Just anybody here consider themselves a tzaddik? You can be honest, don't worry. Anybody? Nobody. Okay. What would you say is the ratio between tzaddik to Beinonis within our world? What percentage of humanity have already moved on and they're the tzaddiks of the world versus the people who are still in the struggle zone? What would you say is the 50-50? 20, what was that?
1 to 999.
1 to 99.
999.
99.9, you're saying?
Yeah, so I'd say it's 1%.
1 in 1,000.
Right, 1 in 1,000. Even that's a little bit generous, no? 1 out of every 1,000 people? That's how many people live in every square mile over here of Metro Detroit? How many? What would you say? 500 people? Depends where. There's Bloomfield, there's Huntington Woods.
Square mile, there's tens of thousands, I'd say.
In tens of thousands in 1 square mile of Metro Detroit?
Maybe thousands.
So we're saying there's got to be a few tzaddikim in every square mile of Metro Detroit.
So,
Yeah, I'd say
You hope so?
we hope so.
You think there's 1 out of every 1,000 people is a tzaddik?
I think that would be a wonderful
So that means how many tzaddikim are living today? Tens of thousands. Okay.
comment.
Comes the Talmud. What does the Talmud tell us? Pat, you want to read it? What was that?
just was few tzaddik like
You think there's only a few, only a handful? Let's read this next text. Text from the Talmud. Text 5a.
5a. God saw that
Tzaddikim.
So he went and planted them in every generation.
A few of them, right?
A few of them in every generation.
There you go. You see that, right? Oh, the Talmud gives us the reality check. Very few tzaddikim. God saw at the beginning of time that we're not talking about a lot of people. So, he made sure that they're equally spread out. So then becomes a question. Are we supposed to be a tzaddik?
No.
It seems like a very difficult thing to do. Are we even meant to be there?
I think it's a goal.
Is it a goal? Is it an aspiration? Even though literally nobody gets there?
Should be.
You think it should be? Saying, comes to Tanya, and Tanya tells us realistically what the aspiration of life needs to be. Jeff, you want to give us a read?
Sure.
Text 5b, page 137.
The Benoni is the measure of every person, and for which every person should strive. For every person can be a Benoni in every time and in every moment.
Ooh. People think that the goal of life, ideally, theoretically, should be to be a tzaddik. Yeah, you've got a good few decades to live your life, get to work. At some point, hopefully, you will move past the struggle and any inner negativity will be gone out of your system. No more toxicity with it. Comes the Tanya and says, no. That is not at all the goal of human living. Your goal is to live the most successful life as a Benoni, which means don't dream and don't think and don't aspire that, you know what, maybe one day by the time I die, I won't have any more inner negativity. The fact is, you were born with a struggle, you're going to die with the struggle. The goal of life is to manage the struggle well, which means just because you have a struggle doesn't mean you have to make bad choices. Make the right choices. Just because you have a moment of weakness doesn't mean you have to jump on it. Get over it. Live the most, but have a healthy expectation. You are living the life of a Benoni, which means that life is a struggle. Which means that there's no point where you get to say, I retire. I'm done. Oh, look at that. We've made enough money. I'm retiring from the spiritual struggle because it's over. You're going to die with the struggle. All right? The tzaddik, God saw that tzaddikim are very few, but the Benoni is what we are meant to be. Which leads us to the next question. What's the next natural question? Why would God set us up for a perpetual struggle? What is the point of living a life where the struggle never ends? You never get to win the struggle. You never get to win the battle. Or you can win battles. You can never win the war. Which means we want to all be good people. I think we all believe we're good people, right? I'm a good person. But we also all know that we all have some negativity. So at one point will we get over that negativity? We can get over some of it. Of course we have to grow. But essentially the idea that we're always going to have to struggle with good choices and bad choices, we're going to bring that down to us with our we're going to bring that down with us to our graves. Not in a morbid way, but just that's reality. It's just a reality. Life is a struggle. Even at the most advanced of ages, we're still going to have to make good moral choices, and we're still going to face that difficulty. And the question then is, why did God make us that way? But at least we now know healthy expectation. Don't think that living a life of struggle is a bug in the system. No, it's healthy. It's the way we're created by our Creator. It's what we're meant to be. But why? And this takes us even deeper. Let's ask big questions. Why did God make the world? Well, why are we here in the first place? Why did God make creation? What's the meaning of life? It's 8:30. I think we'll be here till like 11 o'clock at night. That sounds good? With questions like this, no, I'm just kidding. Don't worry. We'll okay. Text 6. Lynn. Chapter 36 of Tanya. Page 1. What was that?
Hope the internet goes off at 9 o'clock.
You're hoping for it, right? That's all them. Well, no one's. All of you guys are here. Okay, page 138, chapter 30, text 6.
Now, the purpose of the evolution of the worlds and their descent from level to level is not for the sake of the higher worlds, because for them this is a descent from the luminance of the divine. Rather, the purpose is the lowly world, for so it arose in God's desire that he should derive satisfaction when the other side is conquered and darkness is transformed into light.
This is a very big Kabbalistic idea. And it's a very dense text. What did we just read?
Yeah.
So first of all, let's go through it point by point. Jewish mysticism teaches us that there's a whole chain of realities, there's a chain of worlds. Generally, we speak about 4 different planes of reality. By the way, our next course, the World of Kabbalah, coming up in November, we're going to do a deep dive into this. The whole spiritual cosmic chain of reality. But God created the world. God created one world, which is a very spiritual world. And from that world evolved a lower form of reality, which is less in tune with divinity, with spirituality. And that second world evolved into a third world. And the third world evolved into the lowest form of creation, which is our world. What makes our world the lowest form of reality? It's the sense that the lowest sense of awareness, the lowest consciousness of God is in our world. If we could live in the world of angels, you wouldn't have to believe in God. You would see God. You would know God. God is just as real as what? As the temperature in the room. You got to believe that there's a temperature outside. You have to believe. Yeah, you see, reality is reality. So in the reality of angels and of souls in another world, God is reality. And they live life. If you have the reality of God within your reality, you live life based on that, right? Your reality defines the lives we live. The only reality where God is simply not a natural part of that reality, which means, of course, God is here. God created the world, and God is the very essence of the world. But from the world's perspective, they don't get to see God. That's the world that we live in. That's what we live in the lowest form of reality within all of the spiritual world and all spiritual planes of existence. Because we live in a world which is naturally godless, we live in a world that has all the consequences of a lack of consciousness of God, which is what? Brute selfishness, negativity, a bunch of egos competing with each other, hurting each other on the way. Well, that's the world we live in. Why? Because there's a sense of a unifying force. There's a lack of a sense of a creator. There's a lack of cohesion, a lack of harmony. So the world that we live in is the result of being within the reality that we are, where there's simply no God. Which means we could believe in God. We should believe in God. But at the end of the day, as long as we live here in this physical world, and as long as this physical world is our world that we live within, God is always going to be, at least on some level, an abstraction. God is never going to be as real as this table right here. God is never going to be as real as the weather outside. It takes work to believe in God and to make God a part of our life. That's what it means to live in this lowest world. Why did God make creation in the first place? What was God missing that he wanted to make this world? Kabbalah teaches, we'll talk a lot about this in the next course. Kabbalah teaches that God had a desire. God had something he wanted, which is that there should be a place of total darkness, a place of negativity, a place of imperfection, because he is not there. And that the inhabitants of that space should transform from imperfection to perfection, from darkness to light, from a lack of godliness to a place of holiness. As we say, to bring heaven down to earth. So what did God do? 1 second. What did God do? God created human beings. And on the one hand, as human beings, We are products of, and we are inhabitants of this earth. We belong in this world. We have an animal soul. We understand what it means to have a very healthy ego. We live life primarily from that place. We are the imperfect beings. And at the same time, God gave us a little spark of himself with which we could then go and not be prisoners of our imperfections, but in the words over here, to conquer the other side and to transform the darkness into light. And that is why God calls us his partners in creation. Because this is part of the divine plan. This is part of what God wants. Imperfect beings who are the ones who can then live within this imperfect world and transform negativity into light. So comes along the Tanya and says, you know why you were created as imperfect beings? Because that's where your purpose is. That's where God needs you. Only imperfect beings can live within an imperfect world and create and cause that transformation. Let's put that up over here. The Beinoni is the life that we are living because it's part of the purpose of creation. Only the imperfect and conflicted being can fulfill the purpose for which God created the world. It's a very spiritual idea. Let's read this next text. Text 7 from chapter 27 of Tanya, and the Alter Rebbe discusses point blank this issue. Somebody who is feeling despondent over spiritual or moral failures, whatever they are. The Alter Rebbe is going to give a very specific example, but it's really any form of a sense of failure in as we go through our struggles in life. Elki, text 7.
If your despondency is not from concern over actual sins, but from negative thoughts and negative desires that befall your mind, then on the contrary, you should rejoice in your lot. That also these negative thoughts and desires before your consciousness, you avert your mind from them, thereby fulfilling the divine commandment. You shall not go astray after your heart and after your eyes. In fact, despondency over such things actually stems from conceit. It comes from the fact that a person does not know his place and therefore feels bad that he is not on the level of a tzaddik, who is not plagued by such thoughts of folly. But if he knew his place, that he is very far from the level of a tzaddik, and that he should aspire to be a Beinoni, then indeed this is the character of the Beinoni and their task in life, to subjugate the negative impulse and thought rising from the heart to the mind.
There's a very, very profound text over here. It's a very revolutionary approach to life. Somebody is living their life, wants to be Mr. Perfect, hopes to be Mr. Perfect, is hoping that their life could be a life of goodness. I want to be a good person. They start realizing that I have a struggle inside. So what are they feeling? They're starting to feel very down about it. They're starting to feel like a failure. I think I'm a failure to God. I think I'm a failure to myself. I'm not growing. I'm not changing. Says the Alter Rebbe, number one, you should just know, every single time that you have a choice to make and you make the right choice, number one, you're doing a mitzvah. So why are you sad that you have the chance to do a mitzvah? There's a mitzvah in the Torah. One of the 613 commandments is you shall not go astray after your heart and after your eyes, which means that when you have a temptation, a weakness, and you don't do it, beautiful. It's a mitzvah. By the way, we say it every single day in the Shema. This verse is there. So the author says, you're feeling bad about yourself. You just did a mitzvah. It's wonderful. Okay. But even deeper, the author says something so profound. He says, you want to be Mr. Perfect? That's arrogance. It's a form of saying, I want to live a different life. You're not designed to be a tzaddik. So why do you want to be a tzaddik? It's a form of saying, I don't like the life that I live. It's a form of rejecting life itself. The Alter Rebbe says, embrace who you are. You are a Beinoni. That's how God created you. You're designed to be this way. It's not a bug, it's a feature. It's who you are. It's part of your purpose. The Beinoni is somebody who has to deal with negative impulses and struggles with them and wins. But you're going to have to always deal with them. This is not an excuse to make bad choices. But it is a way of saying, it's okay, I'm human. It's who I am. The Alter Rebbe says, accept it. Stop being arrogant. Stop saying, I don't like who I am. It's a form of arrogance. Do you want to be somebody else? It's the opposite. Fully embrace your life and your destiny. And the Alter Rebbe says, not only is this something you should accept, but it should be something which is a source of joy. The Alter Rebbe says, you feel sad about it? Don't feel sad about it. The Tanya says, this is your very purpose in life. When you live up your purpose, you should feel the joy that you are fulfilling what God wants and bringing pleasure to joy. And the Alter Rebbe quotes something which comes from Kabbalah, and it's very similar to something we've learned in lesson number 1. One of the first things we've learned at the very beginning of this course, a month ago, was spiritual truth. That God mirrors our emotional space, right? When we are happy, God treats us also from a place of a joyous temperament. When we are sad, also from above, that's how they also mirror that emotional space. Do you remember that? A text from Kabbalah. The Alter Rebbe invokes that Kabbalistic rule here, quotes the Zohar with the same thing over here. The Alter Rebbe says, when you have to deal with your imperfections, that is the way that we fulfill God's very purpose in all of creation. Text 8, Anna, you want to read? Text 8, page 140.
With each and every act of rejection by which a person thrusts away from his mind.
Read also the brackets.
The negative impulse. From his mind, the other side down below in this wall, it's
Conquered.
It's and because it's a stimulus from below cause a stimulus from above. The cosmic other side above the suppressed and the result. So the Zohar extols the great pleasures that God derives when the other side is it's a difficult word, convert here below, for then the glory of God and exalt above all, more than which any other source of prize, and this elevation is greater than any other. Therefore, a person should not feel dejected, not should his heart be terribly distressed, even if he is engaged in this conflict of his life. For perhaps it is for this that he was created, and this is his task, to constantly conquer the other side.
It's a very powerful idea. It's a very spiritual idea, right? This is a spiritual problem. We're giving spiritual answers here. But the Alter Rebbe says, the Alter Rebbe, the author of Tanya, tells us that it is precisely because of your imperfections and your struggle with the imperfections and your transformation of living a life of holiness and goodness, specifically from within the struggles, which creates the transformation in all of our world. And in that sense, the Alter Rebbe says, not only is it something to be ashamed about, not only is it something which you shouldn't feel down from, the opposite. Not only you should accept it, it should be a source of joy. That you are living the life that God has designed for you, because this is where your purpose is. This is the way we give God nachas, the joy that God needs, that we are fulfilling our purpose. The joy of knowing that we are exactly who God needs us to be, and that we could do our part. Let's watch a little video, and then we're going to keep on exploring a little bit more. All right?
One day, a fire in hell got out of control, and the whole place burned down. It was bound to happen sooner or later, with those infernal fires burning night and day. So a troupe of architects and interior designers were assigned to build a brand new hell. They redid everything, from the landscaping to the ceramic in the bathrooms. But the righteous folk upstairs in paradise complained. The wicked guys get a brand new modern complex while we are housed in this old dilapidated place? Is this justice? it was decided that the righteous were indeed right. So, the wicked folks were relocated to the old paradise, which now becomes the new hell. And the holy folk moved into the renovated hell, which became the new paradise. What is the meaning of this story? This parable is often used to illustrate one of the innovations of the groundbreaking work Tanya by Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi. Before the Tanya, for many people, their inner life was a spiritual hell. It was a place of discord, self-doubt, and a crushing sense of futility over the never-ending conflict between mind and heart, which went something like this. Why am I attracted to things that are not good for me? Why do I shy away from things I consider good and desirable? Why do I need to force myself to do what I want to do? Am I such a weak and confused creature that I cannot act on my convictions? The spiritually aspiring person yearned for a paradise of inner tranquility. But this yearned for paradise never manifested. The Tanya affirms that there are two selves inside us, a moral and upward-reaching godly soul, and a selfish and materialistic animal soul. And yes, these two selves are engaged in a constant conflict. But according to the Tanya, this inner turmoil is not a spiritual hell. It is a spiritual paradise. For this is our calling in life. Our internal struggles form an integral part of a greater cosmic conflict between the good in God's creation and the negativity, which obscures that goodness. The fighting of this battle is the very purpose for which God created us. And every small victory we score in this struggle brings untold pleasure and gratification to our Creator. By revealing this truth, the Tanya turned the old paradise into the new hell, and the old hell was recast as the new paradise.
I want to bring this home a little bit and really see the beauty of this idea. What's the Alter Rebbe teaching us? In Tanya, Tanya is teaching us to stop looking for life that's not ours and to have a healthy expectation of who we are, who we could be, who we should be, and who we can't be, and to see the beauty of that lifestyle. So, we would all like to live perfect, beautiful lives, but that's not what God needs us for. God wants this transformation of imperfection to a place of beauty. And that only happens by having to grapple with imperfection. And that is our lives. And that is why every single one of us, it's a bitter pill we have to swallow, is born with an agenda. The struggles we go through, our weaknesses, which is different from person to person. Sometimes we look at other people, their lives are so easy. Not necessarily. Everybody has what we call in Yiddish a pekel. You know what a pekel means? A bundle. Everybody has their own bundle you have to deal with. And this is something that we in life have to fully embrace. Let's read text 9 from the Talmud. Page 141.
Ben Azai said, "By your name you will be called, in your place you will be seated, and from what belongs to you will you be given. No person can touch what is prepared for his fellow, and one kingdom does not impinge on another kingdom, even by one hair's breadth."
This is an idea which is actually a cornerstone of our belief of life in Judaism. Nothing is random. Who you are, your strengths, your weaknesses, your life circumstances, your chances for success, everything is part of what we call in Judaism your portion. Your portion in life. We were all given a specific portion of this world which is ours only to perfect. There's a little part of this universe that has our name on it. The car that we drive, the house that we own, and the struggles we have to go through. It's what we're born with. And it's our mission and job in life that this little part of the world is ours to work with. Sometimes we reject it. We resent it. Why do I have to have these struggles? Why do I need to go through it? But this is something which Judaism says we have to learn to not just accept, but embrace. And not to be sad when we experience it, but to take it with a sense of joy and positivity. This is my purpose. This is why God wants me here in this world. Beautiful text. Let's read text 10. You'll read it also. Text 10, page 142, a Hasidic teaching.
Every
Susan.
one of us,
No,
every
no,
one-
yeah, go ahead. That's fine.
Every one of us has a bundle that contains everything we experience in the course of our lives. In the world to come, they will take all the bundles and mix them together. Every person will come, recognize his or her own bundle, and want only it.
Very beautiful idea. In a world of truth, we will see the beauty of our lives, even the bad parts of our lives. And we will want our part of our lives. We will see that this is our portion of this world. Let's go back. The very beginning of class, we spoke about calling, job, career. I want you to turn back there. Let's go back to page 132 in your books. I'm not going to ask you what you answered there. I told you I'm not going to ask you, right? But one of the options here, one of the 6 answers we had to give on page 132 was struggling with my character flaws and personal shortcomings. We got to deal with our own problems. Is that a job? Is that a career? Or is that a calling? So either you look at it as a job, I got to do it out of necessity. I wish I didn't have to do this, I got to do it. Or you could say it's a career. I'm looking to become a better person, self-improvement. I'm doing this like that I could grow and become the next best person. But it's still annoying. Judaism teaches us our struggles is our calling. It's something we have to fully embrace as the meaning of life, something which has tremendous impact. It's being who we are. I want to conclude today's class with a text and a little video that's going to bring it home. This is a text from one of the original Hasidic masters, Rabbi Aharon of Karlin, one of the early Hasidic rabbis. It's like a monologue, such a beautiful monologue, such a deep monologue. And this is something which we have to talk to ourselves. So let's read this. Lewis, text 11, page 143, and I think this text really brings it home.
Simply stated, a Jew who walks around and is not suffused with happiness is simply being ungrateful to God. The fact that he's nagging himself, am I a pious person? Am I not a pious person? That is haughtiness. Being despondent is rock bottom, God forbid. What is the essence of despondency? Despondency means I deserve this, missing that. Whether it is a material lack or a spiritual lack, it's all about me. Why should I be concerned over what I lack? I should be concerned that nothing is lacking for God. If our patriarch Abraham would wish to change places with me, I would not want this. Abraham is a tzaddik with very lofty spiritual attainments, and I'm a plain person. If I changed places with Abraham, then he would be a plain person, and I would be a lofty person. God would get nothing out of this exchange. The only one who would gain is me, in that I would achieve loftiness. So again, it's just about the me and myself.
So beautiful. When you look at life that's all about me, I want to be a good person, I want to be successful, I want to be likable, I want to even be spiritually successful. By the way, you could be a very spiritually mindful person, and it's still all about you. It's coming from a place of arrogance. I want to be a great scholar, I want to be a pious person. But you know what? Judaism says you're setting yourself up for disappointment. Because number one, the fact is, most people were not created with the ability to become a tzaddik. So it's not even you. Number two, there's always going to be somebody greater than you. It's like the millionaires. You think the billionaires are happy? They're jealous of the people bigger than them. It's crazy. But it happens spiritually as well. When it's all about you, you won't be happy. You have to realize that you are living the life that God created for you. This is what God needs you to be. Embrace it, live it, and live the life of joy knowing that this is what God wants you to be. Be yourself and show up to the world with your strengths. Make yourself to who God wants you to be. God doesn't need you to be Abraham. God needs you to be you. I want to conclude with a little song, which I think really highlights a lot of the essence of what we're learning about today. So here we go.
25 years, you go up to heaven, you climb all those stairs. They won't ask you were you wise like Solomon. They won't ask you were you strong like Samson. They'll ask just one question and you give just one answer. It's the end of the game and only one thing matters. They'll say, did you give it all you got? 'Cause in this life you only have what you got. So give it, give it, give it all you got. In this world we only have what we got. So give it, give it, give it all you got. If you say it's easy, I'll say it's not. You gotta give it, give it, give it, give it all you got. And if you say it's not for you, I'll say it's your lot. You gotta give it, give it, give it, give it all you got. And if you say you're tired, I'll say tick tock. You gotta give it, give it, give it, give it all you got. And you can put my album on a shelf to rot. Just give it, give it, give it, give it all you got. Working so hard and wiping those tears, you look in the mirror, you face all your fears. Don't be a fool trying to be wise like Solomon. Only the weak try to be strong like Samson. Oh no, oh no. I did what I said, I got no one to blame. Only one thing matters at the end of the game. They'll say, did you give it all you got? 'Cause in this life you only have what you got. So give it, give it, give it all you got. In this world we only have what we got. So give it, give it, give it all you got. If you say it's easy, I'll say it's not. You gotta give it, give it, give it, give it all you got. And if you say it's not for you, I'll say it's your lot. You gotta give it, give it, give it, give it all you got. And if you say you're tired, I'll say tick tock. You gotta give it, give it, give it, give it all you got. No need to put my album on the shelf to rot. Just give it, give it, give it, give it all you got.